if you could look in your crystal ball 20 years down the road, what does it look like here in the Mahoning Valley? Autonomous vehicles everywhere? Or, I mean, what really could we see this valley looking like?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that, never want to really predict the future, but like one of the big discussions that's going on right now is creating a smart corridor, which is, really exciting opportunity, but where there are other smart corridors around the country and they're focused on safety. They're doing great in that perspective. There's Marysville in Ohio with Honda, and they're talking about how autonomous vehicles can move and be safe for everybody. Well, they're doing that research there. The research that we can do here is logistics. We've moved, as I mentioned earlier, with the train couplings and all of that, but we are perfectly located as a transportation hub for the entire eastern seaboard. Logistics and understanding from a smart corridor perspective how autonomous vehicles can move any kind of product, whether it be from TJ Maxx Home Goods or Lordstown Motors sending trucks around the country. Like, that's a smart corridor that we can lead in the country in, and we can utilize the systems at BRITE to work on those sensors and to work on the energy storage aspects that needs. So it's cool that I think as a community we're starting to understand that there's an opportunity to not participate in the future, but create the future and to lead in the future in many places. And so we're seeing that kind of e-mobility, transportation, logistics as a place that we can be at the forefront of. And so one of the things that I think is so important kind of about Lordstown Motors or Tesla or the electrification of vehicles, it's coming. So it's going to happen. Daimler Chrysler said we're not researching internal combustion engines anymore because they're not going to get faster, they're not going to get more efficient than they already are. However, EVs are. So that's a reality that we as a community get to play in. Now, when the first Packard rolled off the line in 1899, not everybody in the Mahoning Valley instantly owned a Packard. Right. It didn't happen overnight. Right, there's a huge beginning of that where until the Model T came out, that was when it was really kind of accessible for the majority of people to be able to purchase. We're not there with EVs yet. This isn't something that needs to be an all or nothing. Oh my gosh, if everybody doesn't buy an EV today, the future's never going to come. Because frankly, not everybody can afford a $50,000 Tesla, and they shouldn't. So we're in an early adoption phase right now for electrification of vehicles. And that electrification can happen in the battery space, or like Hyperion Motors, it can happen in the hydrogen fuel cell space. We don't know who's going to win that battle right now. Tesla's leading in the battery space. Tesla sold more Model 3s this past year than all EVs from every other automaker. So the future is looking bright there, and they're getting cheaper and more affordable. But I think once GM and others come out with their models and having the bigger production capabilities and all of that, those cars are going to get a lot cheaper.
A lot of people don't know you grew up in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, went to West Branch, Kent State.
Mm-hmm.
Your dad was a steel worker, lost his job when his mill closed.
Yep.
You also enlisted and were in the Army in Afghanistan and Kosovo. What did you take away from that experience?
Yeah, it's always interesting. I've felt like my calling from a very young age has been to serve. And that's one of the greatest opportunities that I've ever had as a human, is to be able to serve our country in the military. But some of the things that I took out of that was really leadership. Being able to work with people that you've never met, that you can't fire, can't get rid of, and mold them into highly productive humans is a real challenge and a real blessing to be able to do that. And so taking that experience of leadership, and then also mixing it with kind of having an international perspective. So I was very fortunate that I was able to be deployed, but also spending time in Hungary, working with Hungarian Special Forces, living there and understanding that culture, spending time in Germany and seeing what the world was really like, even if it was moderately close to a military base, which is something to kind of that I really cherish, and that when bringing that back here and kind of understanding that there's growth opportunity everywhere we look, and we're also doing a lot better than a lot of other places. You know, what kind of was a turning point for me is when I was leaving Afghanistan, and I saw an article about a kid in Detroit. He had his foot amputated, and it was due to exposure. It's just a little kid, 4 or 5 years old. And I said, how is this happening in the United States? Like, I don't correlate that, because I saw that in Kosovo, and I saw that in Afghanistan, I saw that in third world countries. And like, we aren't a third world country, right? Last I checked. And so I decided, you know, with my service, that maybe I should stop spending time in Southwest Asia and other places, and really try to focus in on how I can help cities and places like the one that I grew up in, just outside of Alliance, Ohio, Salem, Ohio. And you know, me and a couple buddies got together. We founded a media company, which was my first entrepreneurial venture, and we went out and shot a feature-length documentary. And you know, huge thanks to my co-founder Jack Story, who really led the charge on all of that. But we went to places like St. Louis and Detroit and Cleveland and Buffalo and Pittsburgh. And we thought we were going to tell the story of cities, right? Because Forbes magazine just came out and said that Cleveland was the most miserable city in the country. And I was like, you've never been to Cleveland? Because like, I'm having a good time. Like, I'm not miserable. That's
and your film actually was at the shown at the Cleveland International Film Festival.
Yep. The story that we were telling wasn't about cities being miserable. It was about people that were changing the narrative. And I got to meet my network now through that process of a t-shirt shop in St. Louis that was actually selling city pride. You know, and in Detroit, that we were talking about how does the Great Lakes region work together to bring the economy forward. Like, really cool future-facing stuff that was happening that people were doing every single day, and that they weren't getting their story told. And I see those stories happening here every day in Warren and in Youngstown. And so, you know, that's what really inspired me to say, okay, this is kind of my second iteration of service. Is not only am I going to, you know, start companies and be a part and play a part in the capitalism, but I want to make sure that those companies are providing jobs, that they're helping people, and they're giving people a platform to be able to realize their own dreams. And that's what brought me to BRITE. The opportunity to realize that I'd done some learning out there, and the best thing that I can do is to be able to share that learning and help people realize their dreams. And a lot of those dreams are in entrepreneurship. A lot of those dreams are trying to change the world and make it a better place.
Thought Leaders is sponsored by Eastern Gateway Community College. With more than 35 programs, Eastern Gateway can help you with your career preparation and transfer plans.